Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's stream. Very fleeting visit there from that Scrap Day one. Literally came in, said hi, and then left. We might see him again later. But yeah, we're on the new PC tonight, so things might look and sound a little bit different. I've already said that in the chat, but I'll repeat it audibly as well. Let me pause myself. Hopefully that didn't get picked up. I don't think I've got... Yeah, I haven't got desktop unmuted. That's fine. So yeah, let me know if the sound is a little off or if anything needs tweaking or changing. I'll do that as soon as possible. I have copied over my settings from the laptop, so it should all be working. Let's actually test it. So yeah, we had a couple of questions in the chat already, so I'll answer those as well. Silver Gamings, did I get your email? Yes, I did. I just read through it again to make sure that I got all the information. You sent me two. I don't know if you meant to send two. I ignored the first one because the second one had more information. I hope that's okay. And yeah, I think that's all fine. I would argue that 2A00 perhaps shouldn't call at every station en route between Morningpool Falls and Gronville West, because I think Cross Region does that, and West Rail will do that as well when it's set up. But we'll see. We'll see. We might do it. We will see. And there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, the presentation last week. Twice I kind of said that, you know, it was a good presentation. I enjoyed reading it. A lot of it was very, very good. Few bits were wrong. Some of the spellings were a bit off. I mean, spelling is something that, you know, if you're really pedantic, you'll pick up on it, but it really doesn't matter. But some of the information was off as well. Some of the franchise names were a little bit different. Some of the station names weren't just spelt wrong, but were completely different. So that might be worth looking into. I do get that. I mean, the official transition between the Jeffries network and the M4J network happened after the save file was put on the website. So the save file that people have downloaded off m4jmedia.com is not the same map that I then transitioned into the M4J network. So that's why some things are a little bit different. So it's my memory, and it's also the fact that I did make some tweaks before I thought, hey, I can make this into another series. And actually started making videos on it again. So there's a few things there that I would change, but overall, I thought it was very good. If you do make it publicly available, I'll happily endorse it, because I think it is a good look into the history of this OpenTTD map. I also saw your design yesterday for Nuthill City Centre. To start with, I had some complaints about it. The big complaint I had was the 4 tracks to the south, these ones here, weren't bi-directional. But then I thought, hang on a minute, did I build mine bi-directional? And I went on the game and checked, and I didn't. So that's fine. No complaints there. Beyond that, I'll have to look at the picture again very quickly, because I did like it. I think there's definitely a progression in the design process, which is very good to see. Where is it? The other thing I was going to say, if anyone checked my subreddit yesterday, you would have seen that it was my 1-year anniversary on Reddit, which I thought was this year I signed up. Apparently it was last year, so that's pretty cool as well to see that. I put out a little announcement. No one said anything, but there we go. Yeah, Nuthill. I'm looking at it now. 12 platforms should be fine. I kind of like the staggered platforms. They've not got decoration on, which again is fine, because that's part of the design process, so I'm not going to pick up on that. Some do need signals at both ends, though. That's the big thing I would say. A bit like what we did with Denston when we rebuilt it. We put signals at both sides of the platforms. So we might have to extend a little bit to the north and a little bit to the south in order to accommodate that without changing the platform lengths. But yeah, I think it's a good design. I always try and be deliberately negative when I look at people's designs, because I put it through the same process that I put my own designs through, really, which is try and find all the bad things about it and then see if you can fix them. And there's not a lot that I can find wrong with this, so that's very encouraging. Very quickly as well, actually, the other thing I was going to say with the Great Western stuff, I will have to remind myself what you wanted the Great Western franchise to be called. Sprinters, when were Sprinters designed? I think it might have been late 80s, so that might still fit within the time period. But the current service between Guard City St. Peter and Gronville West, I think, is loco hauled. So I'll have to change the rolling stock, but that shouldn't be a problem. And the other service is HST anyway, so that's absolutely fine. Right. Nirasa, welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sounds like all the audio and everything is okay. Looks like the video is okay as well. I will mention, because someone's going to work it out already, the resolution on my new PC is 4K. Or, 3840 by whatever. I think it's 1080. So, the game looks like it's zoomed out more than it is. My monitor is not about to turn off. Excuse me. I have an eco monitor. That's the problem. It turns itself off after I think it's 2 hours or something like that. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So the resolution I'm seeing is 3840 by 1080 or 19. I think it's 1920 actually. The resolution you're seeing is 1920 by 1080. So it's a bit compressed. That's why it looks more zoomed out than it actually is. If you want me to change it, I'll change it. I'll change the resolution back. I think it's quite nice to actually have a little bit more of a zoomed out view. Because you guys watching, you don't want to see this all the time while I'm building stuff. You want to see this and a grand view. Whereas I'm looking at it almost one order of magnitude further zoomed in than what you're seeing. So it means I can do like the fiddly building bit while you guys get to sort of sit back and actually watch it from a bit higher up. So I think it's a good thing. But let me know if you want me to change it, and I'll change it. Because at the end of the day, what I see and what I think doesn't really matter when it comes to resolution, because I'm not the one watching the video. Did you hear about East Midlands Railway new intercity trains? Let me think. I saw an article with the new liveries. They've gone with the weird purple and orange type. Is it purple and orange or purple and green? I think it's purple and green. The new livery. It's okay. I did hear something about new trains. I read about a timescale. Yeah, I read about a timescale, but I can't remember the rest. What did I think of the Beffingway design? Again, there's a few things that I did pick up on with the Beffingway design. The most important one, which is something that I can actually add in myself. So again, it's not a massive issue. But the largest complaint I did have with Beffingway was there's no way for trains that are terminating on the Great Northern route to pass underneath or over the top of the tracks on the west and east side of the station in order to head back in the opposite direction. I don't think trains will be doing that from the east, because I think they'll be using the North Valleys platforms for that. But on the west side, there used to be a crossover, or a flyover or a dive under. I can't remember which one it was, which I can see has been removed for the purposes of this design, which again is absolutely fine. And I can actually see a way to build a new one in, so it's not too big an issue. The other thing is some of the platforms, like the platform ends, then there's a signal, and then there's like 2 more tiles of straight track, and then there's a junction. And I feel like you could have saved a lot more space if you just did end of platform, signal, junction, literally in 3 tiles rather than like 5 or 6 like it is here. But beyond that, again, 2 through tracks, very good. The 3 platforms on the north side, the 5 platforms on the south side, all looks good. And I like the way that you've made the North Valley lines join up on the east side of the station as well. That's awesome. Because that wasn't part of the brief, but it was something I thought afterwards, like, oh, actually, maybe I should have mentioned that. So that's good, because we can now have through cross-country services even, or cross-region services using the North Valleys line rather than using the Great Northern line, which saves capacity. Have you ever built or used a one-tile platform? Look at the screen. Far East platform at Nuthill City Centre is a one-tile platform. That used to be the little shuttle service between Denston and Nuthill. which could be returning, but I think the platform will be moved to the other side of the station, considering that's where the track's coming from now. Also, there are request stops in real life Britain. Will you implement them? How do you implement a request stop? The Twitch resolution is 720, but I'm streaming it in 1080. That's Twitch. That's because I'm not partnered, so I don't have the option to increase the... Oh, sorry, it's YouTube. It's not Twitch. It's YouTube that's compressing it down to 720. It should be streaming in 1080, because that's what I asked OBS to do when I set it up yesterday. And in fact, if I check now, we are currently... that's not what I wanted to do. What do I want to do? There. Yeah, the base resolution is 1920 by 1080, and then the scaled resolution is 1280 by 720. So you'll be seeing 1280 by 720. For those interested, when you look at the resolution on YouTube settings, it's always the Y value that you're seeing. So you don't see the 1080, you just see the 720. So I can assure you, it's a good resolution. You can see everything that you want to be able to see. Yeah, apart from using conditional orders, which does not work very well when you put them randomly in the orders list. I know I've got them at the start and the end. Actually, I only have one at the end these days. But yeah, one-tile platform, answered that. Request stops, answered that. Instead of using request stops, I tend to have like a small station that only one service calls at. So there could be like 12 services that use the line and only one stops at that station, and that kind of works like a request stop would. Hitachi won 24 meter long carriages instead of 26 meters, an extra diesel engine, I think 4 instead of 3, and they will supply 33 5-car units. That's news to me. I haven't heard that. But my magazine should have arrived today, 1st of August, so I'll check that, because it might be in there. Should we actually start the stream? I think we should start the stream. So yeah, we're doing 3 things tonight. If you want to go check out the episode plan, you're more than welcome to do so. We're going to build the new line that we planned out last week, but we're not going to build all of it. We're only going to build the section between Nuthill City Centre, which is where we are now, and Wantford, which I think is going to be like the first junction station on that route. We're then going to rebuild the route between Nuthill City Centre and Grundhead Apollonia, and then we're going to plan services that cross through Nuthill City Centre in all 4 directions. The current service that goes between Nuthill City Centre and Menhill City, I'm thinking of taking it out of the Great Eastern franchise and putting it into a new franchise along with these other services that we'll be planning today. But that's just a theory right now, it's not necessarily concrete. So don't hold me to that just yet. So we'll start building the line, because there's a couple more things that I do want to say. One of which was, I had a question yesterday or the day before on last week's stream about considering Joker, currently Lieutenant Joker is currently not planning to update his patch pack. Will I be switching to the JGR patch? And the answer to that is a flat no, because like my analogy for this, I like to put analogies in every now and then, and my analogy for this is as so. If Grand Theft Auto, so GTA Online, if Rockstar announced tomorrow that they were no longer going to be adding updates to Grand Theft Auto, I wouldn't just stop using the game, stop playing the game and go play something else. I would continue using the game because I like the features that are still in the game. That's kind of how I feel about Joker's patch. I like Joker's patch. When I first started my series, way back when, I had a choice. And at the time, JGR looked like the better option, I'll be honest. But the thing that drew me to Joker's patch was the fact that he was also a content creator. And JGR might be. I'm not really familiar with who JGR is, if that even is a person. But I liked the fact that Joker's channel was about the same size that mine was at the time. And I kind of felt like that feeling of camaraderie, you know? Like we were in the same boat. We're both content creators, similar sized channel, similar sized following. And, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing. And to an extent, that is exactly what's happened. So I had the glitch no, it wasn't last year, was it? I think it was 2 years ago, where every time a train crashed in the game, my game crashed. And at the time I thought, well, that's a series ender. Like, if the game keeps crashing, there's not a lot I can do about that. But I messaged Joker on his channel and said, there's a glitch in the game. Would you mind taking a look at it? He asked me to send him the copy of the game over. Within 24 hours, he'd fixed it. You don't get that with most patch makers. And just that alone would make me want to say, I never want to play another patch. I only want to play this patch. I like this patch. As I said, even if it never gets updated again, which is not something that Joker has said, by the way. Someone's put words in his mouth there. He said he's not interested in adding new features at the time. He will do bug fixes, which is always good. But on this stream, in fact, a few weeks ago, he did say that if he ever caught the bug again, he would start working on the patch again. So it's not over, it's not dead, as some people seem to think it is. It's just on hiatus for a while, which is something that I'm all too familiar with. So yeah, that's my reasoning for why I'm not going to change. Plus, I had a whole list read out to me of all the features that I would lose were I to switch, and there was about 6 or 7 that I really wanted or really liked in this patch. That I would lose if I switched, and then I read the list of things that I would gain, and there was like 2 or 3, and that just doesn't add up, does it? You lose 2 or 3, you lose 7 things that you like, and you only gain 2 things that you don't even know yet whether you like or not. So it just didn't add up. So I'm perfectly happy, and I'll put that on the record now. I am perfectly happy playing Lieutenant Joker's patch, even if it never gets updated again. I am perfectly happy playing this patch, and hopefully that answers people's questions on whether I'm ever going to switch. So yeah, Hitachi once again have won the order. I said that really really aggressively. I didn't mean it like that at all. I like Hitachi, I've said that before. It's just a bit boring when the same company wins the bidding process over and over again. One thing that the UK rail industry is really lacking at the moment is innovation. We used to be good at that. Way back when, we used to be really good at that. Railways wouldn't exist at all in the world if it wasn't for British innovation. And now we just do the same thing over and over again. I don't even care that we get most of our products now from abroad, because it's the same old thing. It's like England in sport. We invented it, they beat us at it. I'm okay with that, because again, it's innovation. It's people doing things, taking an idea and making it better, and there's nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned. But I would like to see other companies entering the race. I kind of see it, again, I don't think anyone here is interested in theme parks and roller coasters like I am, but if you look up the company Rocky Mountain Construction, they are the hottest manufacturers right now. Everything they build is a hit. Me personally, I'm bored of RMCs. I think there's too many of them being built at the moment, and there's too many people getting overly excited about them. It's a little tiresome. I don't think they're bad, I just think they're overused, and there's no innovation. And there's only so many things, because they do things differently, I'll give them that, but because they've built so many designs now, similar things are starting to crop up and people are starting to notice, and it's only a matter of time before people start saying, oh, they've put that loop in again, or that helix again. Bombardier are struggling though with very little orders left, as most orders are coming to an end. Not true. Not true. They've just signed 2 contracts to build trains in Derbyshire for 2 new monorail systems that are being built in Egypt. There's plenty for Bombardier to do. First and foremost, they can fix what's wrong with their current trains before they start designing new ones. They were the innovative company way back when. Although I said, was it last week? Someone asked me what my favourite train was, and I said I quite like the Networkers. I actually found out from doing some research afterwards that the Networkers formed the basis for the Electra Stars and the Turbo Stars. So that's another reason why I like them, because the Electra Stars are the most ordered train and most used train on the British network, and they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the Networkers. because who was it? ABB, who had the design for the networkers, actually sold the design to Bombardier. Yeah, Bombardier have got plenty to do, particularly if they win the high-speed 2 order with Hitachi. And there's always commuter trains around the world that need building, and they'll always have a market for that. So they're fine. They're not struggling. Not like they were a few years ago. They're a lot better off now. And Litchurch Lane is one of their major sites as well. So even if things wound down in England for a while, they could build trains for other companies. Sorry, other countries, not companies, around the world. Not a problem. Should I build a station here at Great Chunway? I think I don't want to like go in here and then come out again. So I suppose what we could do is go straight through the middle of Great Chunway and Lunston. I don't want to destroy too much of the town to do that though. I doubt West Coast need to. I doubt they need to. The Pendolinos are perfectly good. I personally don't like them. I don't like riding on them, but I will always hold my hands up and say they are a good design. The public also seem to agree, so there's no need. No need for new trains. Don't order new trains for the sake of having new trains, because that's how companies go bust. It's not financially viable to do that. It's a bit like you buy a new house and you decide you don't like any of it, so you knock it all down and rebuild it, and then you wonder why you've got no money left. Are there any special trains not part of any regular passenger or cargo service? If so, what are they used for? Not yet, but there will be. It'll be a bit more tricky to do now. I don't know if anyone remembers, I think it was the second map that I built. I had something called the Excelsior service, which was basically it was observation trains. So, you know, in real life, companies used to have what they called observation trains. They were called something like that, where members of the board or track surveyors would get on board a one carriage train and travel the main line. That works well in real life. In the game, where you have to have waypoints for speed limit changes like I do, it won't work very well. So that might not be coming back, but Garden City St. Peter does have an extra long platform on the northern end of the site. That will be used for sleeper trains, which technically is regular passenger trains. If scheduled dispatch was a thing, I would make it so that this train only ran at night, you know, for realism's sake, or at least like left at 5 PM or something like that. Can't do that. I mean, can I do that? I mean, I could run one like every 12 hours or something stupid. Voyagers, I was thinking of. I love Pendolinos and do not want them to go. I believe they are due to be life expired in the mid-2030s. I reckon by then, though, the technology will exist to extend... Why can't I talk tonight? I reckon by 2030, the technology will exist to extend their lifespan, much in the way that Viva Rail have extended the lifespan of the D train. I think that would be perfectly possible. Also, I would actually say if Cross Country inherit all the HSTs that are still around, West Coast should take back the Voyagers, because they were perfect. It's exactly what they were designed for, was the West Coast. So why not use them? There's nothing wrong with them. People have this idea of because a train's old, it's broken. It's not. There's nothing wrong with a Voyager. They work perfectly fine. They just didn't run very well on the sea wall, which is something they weren't designed for. So take them back, reuse them. The thing that I always point to is the D train when it first started on the Bedford-Bletchley line. Jeff Marshall went out with a camera and he found some regular commuters on that line, and he asked them, "Do you think this is an old train?" And they said, "No, brand new." But I reckon if you went around telling people, "Oh, by the way, this is an old tube train, it ran on London Underground for 20-30 years," people would suddenly change their opinion and go, "Oh, it's old." But it's not old, it's new. It's brand new. It's completely refurbished inside. Even the bodywork, very little of it remains from London Underground days. It's just this mental stigma that people have of, oh, it must be old. Southeastern may see new stock, but I would like the 707s to be used for Southeastern. I think... Oh, I say that a lot. I'm very opinionated on this series. I never used to be. What's happened to me? I guess because I've studied the rail network a lot in order to provide accurate information when I'm making these videos. So it's kind of become second nature now that I get very cynical about these sorts of things. I actually think Southeastern would be better off inheriting the rest of the... I think the 707s should go to Southern, because then they can run in unison with the 717s and the 700s. And then I think the 377s and the 387s... Does Southern have 387s? I know Thameslink did, and now Great Northern do. I think all of those should go to Southeastern, because, you know, Electrostars with Electrostars and Desiros with Desiros. Because if you run compatible stock like that, then you run less risk of not having compatible stock or drivers available if there's an incident. Cross Country said in early July that they would not take GWR's HSTs because of automatic train protection, and their drivers are not trained for ATP. You can refit those though. You can refit an HST. If you think like Midland, East Midlands don't have APT on their HSTs, neither did East Coast. Take the East Coast ones. Do you think I should work in the rail industry with these wacky ideas, or do you think I'd last 5 minutes before being shown the door? I reckon the latter, somehow, because I probably would end up just saying to someone, do you actually know what you're doing? If you do fork the patch pack and add in the increased per vehicle order limit and scheduled dispatch, for example, then will your fork be called something like M4J patch pack? Probably not. I'm not sure if I would make it available if I did do it. Because there's a lot of... Basically, it's not my work. It's not my work to produce and give away. So I would talk to Joker first and say, you know, if I do go ahead with this, would you mind if I released it? And even if he was fine with it, I would probably still put his name on it, because it really is his work. He compiled the original patch. Again, it's like if I took a painting from an art gallery and painted an extra tree in the background, it doesn't become mine. You know, it's still theirs that's been amended slightly. So I would go with that philosophy of, it's not really... I've not changed it enough to make it my own. Plus, I would probably need his advice in order to be able to amend it anyway. I would have said the same. Do you actually know what you were doing? I'd probably make half the companies bankrupt with all the ideas I... Yeah, that's the thing. And it's why I try and be as realistic as possible when I'm doing this as well. And I know I use things like the money cheat and stuff like that. And it's not always... Have I gone past where I was supposed to be, by the way? No, nowhere near. I'm supposed to be going over here somewhere. There it is, Watford. You got to be realistic about it. Like, I mean, I say this a lot. For XVI, I'm not the financial director, but I do kind of have my eye on the ball when it comes to the finances, and all the time I'm saying to people, like, and how do you think we're going to pay for that? And you do come across as the real boring guy who likes to shut down ideas, and it's really hard to not be that person when you're trying to watch out for things like that. So, you know, in the rail industry, I would do as much as I could to save money. So I would look at things like new franchises, and instead of saying, and what new trains will you be buying? When companies agree to take over franchises, I'll say to them, and what trains will you be planning on refurbishing? Because what's the point of just buying new trains all the time and bankrupting yourself? You know, it doesn't add anything. You don't become a better company because you've got new trains, as Thameslink have proved. In fact, the new trains caused more problems than they solved. If they just stuck with the 319s and the 387s that they were already using, the new timetable probably would have gone off without a hitch. But because they tried to bring in all the new 700s on the same day, it didn't work. It failed. A1, welcome back. You joined us in the middle of a very, very intense debate. That's not true. It's not a debate at all. Basically just saying how the UK rail industry is not working, and the kind of things that I would do differently to try and make it work a little bit better. I do like that idea of upcycling though. I think what Viva Rail have done is absolutely brilliant. And they are still being innovative with it. They weren't the first to do the hydrogen train. Porterbrook beat them to it with the 769. Is that the class number now? So they weren't the first, but I would say it's a bit like the Oculus Rift. Viva Rail were first in announcing it and actually ploughing forward with it, but because they announced it, other companies then tried to beat them to it and have now beaten them to it. Are there any trains in the last few years that have not been delayed? Yeah. Well, actually not in the last few years, but the Javelins came in 2 years early. Yeah, I'm doing good, A1. I'm doing good. Playing on the new PC tonight, so I mean, I've had this conversation already, but the resolution might look a little bit different on the screen tonight to last week because we've got the new monitor set up, so, and the new PC, which I will add in the description the specs for at some point in the future. Oh, is it 799, the hydrogen one? I was close. It's really hard to keep up with the class numbers for that because they change all the time. Originally they were just the 319 flexes, then they announced the 769. I don't even remember them announcing the fact that the 799 was going to be a different thing. Normally it would just be like the 769-3, and that would be the hydrogen one. The 769-1 would be the, you know, the hybrid one. I don't know why they feel the need to just throw different numbers in each time. But again, not my call. But yeah, the Azumas even were late, not because of the manufacturer, but because of the infrastructure and the signal interference that was happening on the overhead lines when two trains passed north of Doncaster, I want to say. But just this morning, in fact, the first train from Edinburgh to London using an Azuma ran, which really is a monumentous occasion in UK rail history. So much so that they actually got Mallard out of the National Rail Museum to meet it. The train yesterday, the first one to run from London to York, Mallard was waiting for it, and Flying Scotsman. But the Javelins between London and Ashford, they came in 2007. The first one was delivered, and they entered service in 2009. I think it was like, was it 6 months early or something ridiculous? Like, the testing went so well and they got through it so much faster than they thought they would that they were able to start preview services. And that's why the Olympics, the transport for the Olympics, ended up being so successful, because originally they were only expecting to have the DLR in the underground, taking people to and from Stratford, and in the end they could run the shuttles between St Pancras and Ashford using the Javelins, and it worked really, really well. Alright, so this is going to be the limit of our operations for now. I like the new East Midlands rail trains announced 2 days ago, but I do not like the fact that EMR are planning to use 180s to replace HSTs. If they fix them up and get them working. Again, you got to be kind of level-headed and impartial. The 180s have a lot of maintenance issues at the moment, but that's mainly because they're used every single day. If you take them out of service for like 6 months and do a full refurb program on every single unit, you will get the best out of them again. But when you only have like a day to fix it and get it working again, you just do the bare minimum to make it work. And that's why it's not worked for the 180s, especially on the long route up to Hull. And even when Grand Central used them up to Bradford and Sunderland, they're long distance journeys, and they're not suited for long distance journeys. I mean, they are suited for long distance journeys, but when their maintenance is a bit of a nightmare, they are not suited for long distance journeys, and that's why it didn't work out. But I think give them a fair crack. Put them in the workshop for a few months. Give them a full refurb, new engines if necessary, completely refit the interior, and they will do the job. 170s on regional services. Yeah, I think they'll have to work in pairs. I don't think you can run them on their own. Do I want to do that? Yeah, I think I'll do that. Let the line run up here alongside the river. I think that looks quite nice. Cut that back as well, and we'll cut this, and then we'll go along like so. Have I been keeping up with questions and comments? I think I have. I'm not going to lie, the M4J patch pack does sound awesome as a name, but I just don't feel like it would be justified. Like, I have a custom Chrome theme that I use on Google Chrome, which is the M4J logo and, you know, the company colours and things like that. And I felt like releasing it as a free download on my website. But then I thought, well, what's the point? Because people either use it or they don't. And, you know, it took me 5 minutes to make, so it's not really hard work. If people want the file, I'll send them the file. It's very easy to install. There's no point doing like an official release and an official download, because you really aren't getting anything for it. I'm not charging for it, it's going to be free, but even then, I feel like even if it's free, you're not really getting your money's worth. And that's when I just think, oh, it's pointless. Might as well just, you know, do it on a demand thing. If people want it, I'll send it to them. If too many people want it, then I'll release it. LNER is apparently getting extension of up to 5 years. I was about to say I don't see that as a bad thing, but I kind of do, because it's a bit like what East Coast did years ago. They're starting to use it as an excuse for renationalisation, not realising that it actually proves the opposite, rather than the... Like, it's not really an argument in favour of renationalising it when it's one of however many franchises there are these days that operates using that model. That's why it's successful, because it's different. If you make that the norm, then they'll all fail. Because if LNER has a problem one day, it's just LNER that's affected. Whereas if LNER and the rest of the network gets renationalised and then there's a problem, it can have knockback effects, particularly if you do what they did in BR days and use shared stock. It's a problem and a disaster waiting to happen. And again, I kind of fell down a Wikipedia rabbit hole the other day, because I was looking up the networkers, and like at the very bottom of the networker for the 365s, it mentioned the Potters Bar rail crash, and I had another look at that, because I was always under the assumption that that's what killed Railtrack, which was a private company. But there was a lot of other things that led up to that, including the Hatfield rail crash, which is right near where I live. And that's what killed it. And renationalising the rail maintenance under Network Rail is kind of what's kept things going. And again, people might use that as an argument for renationalisation, but they're blaming... Like, Virgin got blamed for the Azumas not being introduced on time, but it wasn't their fault. It was Network Rail's fault, which was a nationalised company. So it proves it doesn't work rather than it proves it does work. People don't notice that though. Have I ever been on a train in real life during its maiden journey? No. I don't think I've been on a train on its maiden journey. I think I've, when I was younger, was it Flying Scotsman? It might have been Flying Scotsman. When I was a kid, went to Potters Bar Station and watched the steam loco come through, which was on its first run. My mother, who's also a big fan of steam railways, she watched Flying Scotsman on its last in-service journey way back when. At least that's what she said. Alright, no, I'm not building this. I literally just destroyed that and then rebuilt the exact same thing again. That's not what I wanted to do. This is me now trying to get a station design right the first time, so I don't have to do a whole series of rebuilding old stations. I think that and that should be enough for the waypoints. Doesn't Network Rail cause more delays than anyone else? Yep. Same as, you know, national highways cause more delays on the roads than anyone else. Mainly because they're a multi-million-pound organisation that have fingers in lots of pies, whereas we as motorists can only cause one accident at a time, in theory. So that statistic is bogus, basically. Like, you throw enough darts at a board, you'll hit the bullseye. Doesn't mean you're good at darts. That's a really bad analogy as well. They don't get better than this, guys. I'll tell you that now. If anything, they get worse. Right. So we're going to have like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 platform station here, I think. I think. And it'll be something like that. And then on this side, it'll be something like that. So it's a staggered station, because that seems to be the theme for the network at the moment, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And half the schemes are delayed. Yeah. Again, and I'll say this a lot. It's one thing to criticize a company for something that is their fault. It's another thing to criticize a company for something that they can't help. And I feel like with Network Rail, a lot of other factors come into it. Like it was, who was the company began with C that went bust? Was it Cisco, Serco, something like that? They were subcontracted by Network Rail to do a lot of the electrification projects, and because the company went bankrupt, they couldn't do the job anymore, so they had to default, which meant Network Rail couldn't do the project they were planning on doing, which meant they had to default. And I would wonder in those circumstances how many people went, that's company X's fault, or how many people went, that's Network Rail's fault. Like, they didn't know. When you sign up a contract with a company, you don't necessarily know whether they're going to survive or not. It's not really your business either. Like, they either have strong finances or they don't. And it's no one else's business but theirs as to whether that's the case or not. Let's do that. So that'll be where the other line goes out. This will come along and down. So yeah, it's you got to be careful when you talk about things like that, because 99% of the time a project does get delayed because of the company that planned it, and it is their fault. But that 1% of the time, which is the 1% that everyone talks about, you'll find that it's not their fault at all, and they couldn't help it. Because you know, a lot of good stuff gets done by Network Rail. The whole rebuilding of London Bridge, people think that, you know, it was late, it was delayed or whatever, but a lot of that wasn't Network Rail's fault. A lot of that was promised before Network Rail even existed. And then once they actually did get down to it, they got it done very quickly. Did a good job. Where am I putting these signals? There and there? Possibly. I feel like this one needs to come back to like there. And this one to there. So we can go across like that and then down like that. I think that would work. Carillion, thank you, Carillion. Same goes when passengers blame Southern for strikes when it's actually the government dictating the companies. Again, I don't think that's the whole truth, because Southern... I mean, first of all, it's Cavier Thameslink Railway. Is it Thameslink and Southern? Cavier Thameslink and Southern, or something like that. So Great Northern, Thameslink and Southern are all the same company. And Southeastern, I think, is still Cavier. It used to be. It might still be. Perhaps someone who does know that can to let me know in the chat. But driver-only operation is not a government initiative. That is a company trying to save money, which again is not a bad thing, but it's made out to be a bad thing. And the whole "it's not safe" argument is technically true, but is also technically not true, because other companies have been using driver-only operation for years and years and years. But I mean, personally, I don't see it as a bad thing to have someone else on the train. 2 people is a lot better, particularly when you're in charge of so many people on a train. You want to make sure that everyone is safe. And the best way to do that is to have one person drive the train and not have to worry about the people behind them, and then have the other person actually be in charge of passenger safety. It is still Cavier, yeah. That was the other thing that made me laugh, was Southeastern haven't really done that bad. And again, they were part of the Javelin introduction, so they've done a good job, Cavier. But as soon as the Thameslink deal was announced, and Thameslink started, and Southern started, everyone goes, "Oh, Cavier, terrible company." And now it's kind of become the in-joke that everyone hates Cavier. But do they? Or do they just hate Southern? Which is it? I think it's the latter myself. It's a bit like I play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, and every now and then there's a game-breaking glitch, and the joke is always, "Oh, fix your game, Ubisoft." But is it broken? Probably not. There's a lot of things about it that don't work the way they should do, but it doesn't mean it's a broken game. Right, so this route is built. We just need to do the signaling way over here. I think this station design will work. I hope it'll work. We'll find out if it works or not. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, don't just go around throwing accusations, because especially in this day and age, if you're over the age of 18, you can be accused of being libelous or slanderous, particularly if it turns out that what you're saying is just not true. You have to be very, very careful. You can't just go around talking about companies like that and saying, "Oh, they're bad, they're the reason this has happened," because it's just not true. Simply isn't true. You have to be very, very careful. I'm just going to build it like this for now. And then we'll do the decoration. Let's actually just have a look at what this station looks like first. It's very staggered. But actually, it looks kind of nice, staggered like this. I quite like that. I think we'll just call it Wantford. We won't give it a fancy name. Maybe in the future we will, but right now we won't. Do I want to decorate the platforms with roofs? Could do. Saves me a bit of work. For these middle bits. I remember someone saying, one of the mayors in the north saying Arriva should lose its operating license because of Northern. Yet I would argue that Chiltern is an example of a good company. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the problem that we're demonstrating now as well, is we're armchair fans basically. We're sitting here, you know, you guys are watching me stream, I'm streaming, and we're trying to tell other people how to run their company, essentially. And what qualifications do we have again? Like, I have a degree in interactive media design. That doesn't put me in a position to be able to tell someone how to run a railway. It's just that thing of, you've got to back it up. You've got to be able to state clearly why you think something should be done a certain way. And personally, I don't think any of us have the credentials to be able to do that. Not yet. Maybe one day. Not yet. But yeah, that's a very good example of Chiltern is the best company in the UK. Rail company in the UK right now. I think they slipped a little bit over the last couple of years, but again, not entirely their fault. Whereas some of the other companies, like Thameslink, have got Southeastern on their books as well. And Great Northern, all the times I've gone into London, I've not really had any problems. So I always looked at it as, is there actually a problem? And then I did some more reading about it. It's like, oh yeah, there's actually a very big problem. People turning up to catch their train into work, and you know, at the very last second, they get told that, oh no, there's no train today. That, I can imagine, would annoy a lot of people. And that is a bad thing. Companies shouldn't be doing that. I'm talking loads of rubbish right now. Should we change the subject? I think we should change the subject. I'm thinking of putting like platform sidings here. So a train will run into here and then reverse back for storage to allow these platforms to be used by other trains. I think we should do that. I won't build them right now, but I'll at least mark out where they'll go. Yeah, 5 tiles, that should be enough. Anyone have any other questions or anything? Chris Russell, welcome to the stream. On Monday, a Northern train was cancelled whilst I was on it. That's always... I always find that... Again, I'm speaking as someone who hasn't been in that position, and I can imagine if you are in that position, it can be incredibly frustrating. But, you know, my dad works in London. He comes home from work sometimes and says he gets on a train at Moorgate, and it sits there for a bit, and then suddenly there's an announcement, oh no, this train isn't going anywhere. And, you know, I find that funny. Like, my instinct is to laugh at that, because it's such a ridiculous thing to happen. You would not expect that to happen normally, but it does. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a ramp rather than stairs. There's these ones, but I don't want that. I guess we are going to have to just go with the stairs. And there was another message as well. Why not call the new station something similar to Trent Valley, i.e. the town's name Trent? Do not use Trent. Well, we'd have to name the valley for that. And there isn't one. This is a hillside. So, you know, Wantford Hillside maybe, or Wantford Hill. I just like Wantford. I think that's quite a nice name. Don't see anything wrong with that. I did consider that, though. When I said about this being a junction station, I did consider it, building it like Tamworth or Lichfield, where you've got like the cross-country lines or the cross-city lines going over the top, and then you've got the main line going underneath at a 90-degree angle. I did consider that. Very nearly did it as well. Maybe I'll regret not doing it. Who knows? Yeah, next station. I think this one is going to be a smaller station. Not one tile, but close to. Some ticket machines, because we do not like people that ride our trains without tickets. And then maybe just some CTAs. Actually, we'll put shelters in, because shelters, you can say there's a dot matrix inside the shelter. We'll make that one an extra tile. I remember watching one of Jeff's videos and a train was cancelled because of train fault, but it was actually a lack of train crews. Well, do you want to be the person that puts out an announcement saying, sorry everyone, the train's cancelled because Steve didn't turn up for his shift? I don't think that's fair. Again, don't forget, like, a lot of companies do have to be quite euphemistic about why trains have been cancelled. Would you feel confident if they came out and said the train was cancelled because there was a fire, for example? Or would you prefer it if they just said there was a technical issue? I know which I would prefer, and it's not the fire. Obviously, I prefer the train wasn't on fire at all, but if it does happen, then I would rather the truth was masked slightly. You really have to think of things from both sides in cases like this, and it's not an easy thing to do, I appreciate, but a lot of the time it's not the person's fault that most people seem to want to blame. And I do find, not just in the rail industry, but life in general, I do find that to be very unfair. Have there ever been any train breakdowns whilst you were on it? Yes. Eurostar. Second time I ever went to France on the Eurostar. And on the way back, about the midpoint of the tunnel, Channel Tunnel, train stopped and the lights went out. And I think it was like 2 hours we were there for. So I think like the emergency backup power came on, so the lights did come back on after a little while, and not all of the lights in the carriage went off. I personally didn't mind. Just thought, oh, train stopped. Some people were panicking. I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was like 2002, around about then. So, you know, I got bored, sat waiting for the train to go again. It did eventually go, of course, otherwise I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I've been on a rail tour as well with a steam loco when there was a hot box and we had to stop right in the middle of the East Coast Main Line on the way up to Newcastle. I can't remember what the steam loco was though. I was going to build a station here in the middle of Lunston. I think we're going to have to remove this road. Anyone else been on a train that's broken down? I think they're the only ones. Didn't have to detrain in either case, so I got quite lucky there. Yeah, I think they're the only ones that I can think of. I've been quite fortunate, really. Not so much now, but I used to get the train a lot in and out of London and never had any breakdowns or any issues like that. So, been very fortunate. So again, I feel quite sheltered because I do read about trains breaking down and I just think, oh, it can't be that bad, surely. But then I've seen, you know, videos on the underground where a carriage will just spontaneously catch fire underneath, and yeah, I can imagine that's quite a scary experience, particularly underground. Was it last summer, there was a fire on the underground? Pretty much the same circumstances, and I can imagine, particularly with other incidents that have happened on the underground, that can be a very frightening experience. I remember being on cross country and it stopped at Sheffield and we had no idea why. Then everyone moved from coach B to coach something, and it was because someone threatened security that they had a weapon. Ha! Again, if you were just asked to move to the other carriage, you would do it. But if you were told that there's someone threatening staff with a weapon, you wouldn't do it as calmly as perhaps you normally would, and that's why companies don't like publicizing why things have to happen the way they do. And it's the worst thing is it's someone's job. Like, if there's an issue and they have to tweet about it, that's someone's job. They have to compose that tweet themselves. They're not told what to say. They're not told, like, oh, just say it like this. They have to come up with it themselves. It caused a meltdown for most of the trains in the area. 30-minute delays and more. Yeah. Yeah. And no other country in the world has a system that can beat that. If a train has to stop for any reason, all the trains that were behind it will also have to stop for that reason. No nationalisation will fix that. No government state-owned railway will fix that. You know, in France, if an SNCF train stops, all the SNCF trains behind it will also stop, because you can't teleport through it. It's just one of those things. Are we nearly back at Nuthill? Bloody hell. There was meant to be 3 stations here, wasn't there? So there was this one, and I think there was one over here as well. Have there ever been any trains delayed by more than one timetable cycle? In real life? Or on this? In real life, yeah, all the time. It's one of the reasons why the circle line isn't a circle anymore, because too many delays. If it runs in a perfect circle and a train gets delayed by 5 minutes, then all the trains behind it will get delayed by 5 minutes. Whereas now with the spiral method, so it runs from Edgware Road, anti-clockwise to Edgware Road, and then down the branch to Hammersmith, if that train gets delayed by 5 minutes, they can pull it out of service, let the other trains go in behind it, carry on, and then put it in behind all those. Or, if it gets to Hammersmith 5 minutes late, you know, the turnaround time means it can leave 5 minutes earlier, or it will wait 5 minutes less than it normally would and still leave on time. It's like people think nationalisation is a magic wand that will fix everything. Yep, it isn't. I'll tell you that now, it isn't. The worst thing is the people that are campaigning heavily for it are the people who will remember how bad it was. And it was bad. By the 90s, it was bad. It was really bad. It doesn't fix anything. It makes the problem worse. It amplifies it. And, you know, I have a horrible feeling that that's the direction we are starting to go in now. Boris Johnson, as PM, he is talking about continuing High Speed 2, which is encouraging, but I also feel like he's the Prime Minister who will renationalise the railways. If anyone's going to do it, it will be him. And it will be a disaster. Because it's not something that you can decide in 5 years, whoops, that didn't work, and change it back. It's not as easy as that. Mind you, we're in a lot of issues like that now, where some people seem to think you can just reverse it if it doesn't work out. And no, you can't. It doesn't work like that. Okay, do we need a station down here? I think we do. I'll put one here. I actually remember saying last week that I wouldn't be doing much talking tonight, but here we are. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something I suddenly remembered. My voice isn't as bad, because I've not really recorded any videos or anything over the last week, because I've just been under my desk reorganising wires and stuff like that. So, I've not been too bad. Yeah, let's use that one. Duh. Right. That's this line done by the looks of things. Look how much faster I can scroll around the map on this PC as well. It's glorious. It's lovely. So here's our new route. It does need a name. Feel free to support me on Patreon and you'll be able to name this route. If you haven't already supported me on Patreon and chose your rewards, of course. Government cuts is all I read. Yes, and he's against it, I think. Nationalisation. Oh, I mean, his opinion is whatever will get him into power. Now he's in power, he doesn't really have an opinion anymore. So that's the most dangerous thing, is someone in charge who has no opinion, has no ideas. Let's not get political. Yeah. No, thing is, you can't avoid it. That's the thing. You can't avoid it. Like, I don't want to sit here and say who voted Leave, who voted Remain, or any of that nonsense, because that doesn't solve anything. But at the same time, railways and politics do go hand in hand. Particularly as, you know, we have a new transport minister now, and their views might be different to their predecessors' views, which means things that have been greenlit might be cancelled, things that were cancelled might be greenlit again. You just don't know. So you kind of got to keep your finger on the pulse, even if you don't want to. Due to internal stuff between the franchise and Parliament, there are some trains that go nowhere and are almost always empty. Have you ever been on such a train? They don't go nowhere. They do go to places. So the Greenford branch, for example, was a good example of a... for example, I said that twice. The Greenford branch was a good example of a parliamentary service, because they wanted to keep the track open for diversion reasons. So if trains couldn't go into Marylebone, for example, they could be rerouted into Paddington and vice versa. But you can't just keep a piece of track open. You have to have a reason for it to stay open. So there was a service. Was it like a one a day or service, or one in the morning, one in the afternoon? They ran between Paddington and Greenford, and I think there was one that ran up to High Wycombe at one point as well, in Aylesbury. Then that's not because of conflict between the franchisee and the government. It's nothing to do with that. It's they want to keep that piece of track open, and they have to have a justifiable reason for keeping it open. So if they say, oh, the 10:15 to Greenford uses that stretch of line every day, then that there is your Exhibit A as to why that route shouldn't be closed. You know, London Overground have a service like that down in South London. Lots of companies do it, for good reason. I haven't been on a train. Actually, I think I've been on a DLR train that does something a bit like that. It's the one... there's a one-a-day DLR train that does go a slightly different route to what it's supposed to. I know some of the... I mean, there's ones like when there's events on at XL, trains do start and stop at Canning Town and go down to Custom House and back. It's not one of those, because they're special events trains. They're not parliamentary trains. Yeah, I see like a lot of content creators on YouTube do these videos. And I've noticed, and I don't want to, you know, follow stereotypes or anything like that, but there's a lot of American YouTube channels that do like TripAdvisor type videos around Europe. And I saw one the other day which was, why do the UK trains have services that go to nowhere? And that really triggers me, because it's just not true. It's just not true. They don't like stop in a field and say, right, out you get. They you know, it goes somewhere. There's a reason why it runs. Do some research. And they do it in this weird, like, History Channel kind of thing, as if they're educating us, but they're giving us all the wrong information. So I feel less educated by the end of those videos than I do educated, which is not good. It's not good at all. And I feel like commenting on a lot of them, saying, that's just not right. Can you make this video again with the right facts this time, please? Sheffield to Cleethorpes via Gainsborough. I've watched a lot of Jeff Marshall doing parliamentary trains. There was the one Stockport to somewhere else in the northwest. This is where my knowledge becomes a little bit stretched. Yeah, now runs from West Ealing, because they had to... Was it because of Crossrail? Crossrail works. They've severed the original connection of the branch. But actually the Greenford branch was a really handy connection, because it was a triangle. So trains were going in all directions, from all directions, and that worked really well as a diversionary route. And now they've had to cut it back. From May 2019, a regular service from Sheffield to Gainsborough Central for the first time since 1993. That's good. Branch from Old Oak Common has closed to make way for... Oh, it's High Speed 2, sorry. Yeah, High Speed 2, not Crossrail. I mean, that's an example of progress actually obstructing current infrastructure. It's also another reason why High Speed 2 can't be cancelled now, because too much work has gone into it for them to just cancel it. It will cost more money now to cancel it than it probably will just to keep going. I would love to see it restored to a regular service, but the service runs 3 trains per day on a Saturday to protect it from closure. Parliamentary train. Sheffield to Cleethorpes runs in my area. Would be nice to see it restored regularly, particularly for Brig. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, back to the plan, because we've built the new line between Nuthill City Centre and Wantford. Rebuild route between Nuthill City Centre and Grundhead Apollonia. So again, we have this route here, which also doesn't have a name. So anyone who is thinking of supporting me on Patreon, this could be the route that you name. It's got a lot of windy sections like this, which we're going to completely rebuild. The big rebuilding bit is going to be here. So Sardingston is going to stay in place, but this line is going to be rerouted this way. And also over here. So this station here at Cunley is going to be built this way. We're going to have a new station, this type of station with the 2 side tracks. That's going to be moved to here to serve Brondinghatton. Cunley's going to have a new 2-platform station built here, and then all of this land here is going to be filled in, and the new route is going to come this way via a new station here at Garnwell, and then up into Grundhead Apollonia Airport, which is where it's going to terminate. But we will in the future, probably off camera actually, I'll go and finish off this section here up to Playhatton Springs. I knew it was something Springs. There are some railway lines that were closed and replaced with what is now, for example, footpaths. Have you ever been on... Yep. The Auburn Way runs between Hatfield and St Albans. It used to be the Hatfield and St Albans Railway. I used to ride my bike on it every day. And even when I sometimes walked home from uni, I used to walk down that track because it runs pretty close to where I live. Not too close, but pretty close. I've also very briefly been on the Cambridge Guided Busway, which runs on an old rail route as well. But yeah, you're very into case studies, I've noticed, James. Ask a lot of questions like that. Again, it's not a bad thing, it's just an observation. But yeah, that's actually one question I can answer. I was quite happy about that. Yes, I have been on an old rail route. I have. Right, let's start at Nuthill and carry on from there. So this curve here, I think I'm going to remove the viaduct and make it the curve a bit wider. Although, I think we actually do have the speed limit come down for this, which is why all these waypoints are here. I may put that presentation publicly in the future when I've added the maps. Yeah, like I said at the start of the stream, you might have to correct the information as well. The one that I was unsure of was the original Great Western franchise on the Majeffries network you said went to Moningpool Falls. I don't think it ever did. I think there were plans to do it, but I don't think it ever actually did, because the terminus platforms were Transrapid back then, so that wasn't part of it. See, I don't think it ever went to Moningpool Falls. I know there was one that went off near Plindon and went up to Moningpool Falls that way, but that wasn't part of the franchise, if that makes sense. It was a Great Western service, but Moningpool Falls was never part of the Great Western route. I like reading case studies and reports too. Don't get me wrong. Depends what they are though. I like, again, I don't like the TripAdvisor type YouTube videos where they talk about why is this country so weird? Because it is actually quite patronising, these videos. Like the thumbnails and the titles, it's always things like, why does X country do this thing differently to us? And it plays it out as if they're the ones in the wrong. They're not. most cases, and again I'll be very careful the way I say this because it might come across as being a bit rude myself, but most cases are European countries did it first and then other countries followed suit. And particularly in the case of the USA, we did a lot of things first that they still haven't done. So don't throw stones in glass houses. I mean, greenhouses are made of glass, but yeah, if you're in a glass house, don't throw stones. That's all I'll say. I really butchered that sentence. MOF to GSP. It did. I explained that though just now. There was a service that branched off at Plindon and ran across ran up the west coast to Moningpool Falls, but that doesn't make Moningpool Falls part of the Great Western Route. And again, don't forget that the franchises and the routes are different things. And a lot of the routes that you were writing about are routes. The maps are routes. And then you were talking about franchises in the sections where you were talking about routes. And they're not the same thing. They are different things. Like the cross-country route on this map runs between Denston and Buntbourne. But the cross-country franchise doesn't always run between Denston and Buntbourne. They are two separate entities. Yes, I've just carved a huge hole in this town. Yes, I'll fix it afterwards. So that's kind of the... Why is that not working? What's in the way? That's kind of the point that I wanted to make about the presentation, is it's very good and it's very factual a lot of the time, but it's also very obvious that a lot of the information was gained through looking at the timetabled services that were on the network currently and not by recalling what was said and done in videos. Why is the orange thing overlaid at the very right of the stream? I understand the other elements, but not the orange thing. That is a remnant of when I do my Twitch streams. That's a tip jar. I think it does work for YouTube. I think it does. There's a line near me that ran from Grimsby to Boston and Peterborough via the east coast, Louth and Mablethorpe, and connected a lot of Lincolnshire. It was closed south of Louth in the 1960s, and Grimsby to Louth closed in 1970 to passengers and freight. The Grimsby to Louth section of Grimsby is now a major road. I mean, the Cambridge guided busway was a good idea at the time, and then the east-west rail link was proposed, and the Cambridge guided busway sits right on where it would cross through Cambridge. So, or Cambridgeshire I should say, not Cambridge. Something might seem like a brilliant idea at the time, and then in hindsight it turns out to be a terrible idea. And I can speak from experience on that as well. Yeah, the orange thing. Let me see if I can get the cursor on top of it. It's like here, I think. Basically on Twitch you can cheer bits, and you can also subscribe, follow, host, things like that. And every time you do that, there's a little like emoticon thing that appears for each one. So if you cheer some bits, I think it's like a purple diamond type shape, that will drop into the tip jar. I think there's also a lot of like M4J logos, which is what I use for a lot of my alerts. So yeah, that's what the orange thing is. It's a tip jar. Again, I don't know if it works on YouTube. I mean, the only way to test if it works or not is for someone to donate, which I'm not going to ask people to do if they don't want to. Also, I don't want someone to do it and then it turns out it doesn't work, because then I'll feel really bad. Alright, let's do the old trick again of just build embankments everywhere. I might change it to routes and franchises as two separate things then. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Because the high speed routes, particularly between like GSG and Gronwell, was one high speed route, and then GSG to Plenborough was another high speed route, but then there were also services that ran between Plenborough and Gronwell, which was a franchise thing, and the Railjet services are also a franchise thing that happen to run on the same route. They're not the route, they are franchises. And that's the major difference, is one's a route, one's a franchise, and you have to get them the right way around. Let's build the new Finfingway station on this little embankment here. I'm really misclicking a lot as well because my new mouse is a lot more sensitive than my old mouse. Plus the screen's a lot bigger, so I feel like I have to move it further, and then it zips past where I actually want it to be. So you will have to bear with me with that as well. Yeah, I should say as well, like, this is my network, it's why I know it so well, and I come across as a bit of a smartass when other people ask me about my network, but it's very hard not to. Particularly, like, if someone writes something about my network and they show it to me, and if I find a mistake, I do always find it cruel and a bit mean to say that's wrong. But at the same time, if I don't say anything, it's just as bad, because then there's a misconception that starts getting around. So it's difficult knowing what to say, and I try not to come across as a smart ass when I say something. My rule of thumb is normally if you can't explain something with logic, then it can't be right, or it can't be. I'm trying to think of a way of saying it. Like when we do pub quizzes, I do pub quizzes with my family every week, and most of the time my logic is if someone can't explain to me why they think their answer is right, then it's safer to assume that it's wrong. I would love it if this game had a Move It mod. I think that would be a very good idea, actually. Someone should implement that into the game. If I knew how to, I would. Maybe that could be part of... See, if I added the scheduled dispatch thing and then added another mod that allowed you to move things, then I could release that under my own name. And that would be quite cool. That's a good feature. Someone should suggest that on the forum. What is the largest single donation I've ever received? I think monetary-wise, $20. I think someone might have tipped me 50 once. Actually, donated 50. But I would argue that the biggest sort of donation I ever received was someone. This was before I bought Minecraft. I always used to say I would never play Minecraft, and then someone talked me into buying Minecraft, and then someone else who was in the chat at the same time said that if I got Minecraft they would get a server for us to play on, and I never paid a single penny to that server, and we had it for must have been over a year. So that person paid for a server for us to play on for about 18 months, and that is probably the largest single show of support I've ever had on the channel. There may have been other ones as well. I know, like a lot of the GTA streams I did, you know, people like Kurt and Dylan were doing tipping wars between themselves, who could donate the highest amount, which is quite funny to watch. I mean, I actively endorse it because it means I get more money. But yeah, obviously at the end of the day I want this to be my full-time job, so I would like it if people dipped into their pocket and helped. There's also the thing of technically you're watching all this content for free right now, so giving something back like that is not a bad thing. But at the same time, I don't like asking directly for donations, and I don't like asking for money outright. Move it would be fantastic. Love building large stations, but small ones can be a chore sometimes. Would love to be able to save a template and load them. Yeah, the worst thing is when you build something and then you realise it's one tile out of place. And then you basically... that's kind of why I design my stations to be quite modular, because if I do mess up, which happens from time to time, I can remove, like, say I build it one tile further left than it needed to be, I can remove the left hand tile and just build a new platform on the right hand side. So in that respect, I kind of get away with it. Yeah, as I was saying, I don't like asking for money, but we are at the stage now where I do need to start asking for money, because this channel, and again, this will sound really doom and gloom when I say this, but it's true. This channel needs to support itself now. This channel needs to be able to be self-sustaining, and at the moment it isn't. It's nowhere near self-sustaining, because every year I get like $20 in donations and tips and things like that. And because I don't earn above the threshold, which I think is $60 on Twitch, you have to earn over a certain amount before they pay out, which I think is a fair system. But I never earn over that amount, so I never get any of the money. Basically, it sits in an account somewhere, but I never see a penny of it because I don't earn enough for it to actually pay me. And it does make you start to reconsider, like, well, I guess this channel's not going to be self-sustaining. And when things like XVI come along, which, you know, when the first game comes out and the second game closely after, it will become a self-sustaining company. We'll obviously have to put the work in, but games will pay for themselves within a short space of time. And then there's me sitting here every week producing free content, 2 hours long, for you guys to watch, and not getting anything out of it. I mean, I get enjoyment out of it, that's true, but not getting any financial gains from it. You can see why M4J starts to fall down the priorities list a lot. So that's why I do say, if you like what you see and you can't afford a donation or a tip, that's fine. But there's loads of other things you can do. You can share the videos, you can hit the like button, you can help me get to 1,000 subs, because if I get to 1,000 subs, then I get my monetization status back, which means I can start using ad revenue again. There's lots of little things like that that help just as much as, you know, a 20 quid donation would. There's also things like I've just spent quite a lot of money on a new computer, and that needs to reap the rewards sooner rather than later as well. Because I actually bought this so that I can do XVI video production. I wasn't thinking about M4J when I bought this. Because, you know, there's a lot of content that we want to do for XVI that I wasn't able to do on my old computer. So to have this has helped me there. Which means you will see some good XVI content coming in the near future. But yeah, M4J is it's falling down the priorities list again. And things like this series as well. It's nice to see the same people coming into the stream every week, but I need to see new names as well. Because it's 6 years now. I've been doing this for 6 years, and I'm a long way behind the trend for where a channel should be after 6 years. Like some channels, this is the really depressing thing for me, is I see a channel that I like on YouTube and I subscribe to it, and then 6 months later it's got more subscribers than me. And it's not really anything that I'm doing wrong. You know, I'm producing videos of the same quality, of the same game, same style, whatever it might be. It's just luck. It's just luck that some people get noticed and some people don't. But yeah, sorry to drop that on you like that, but it is one of those things It's why I always say it. It's why every video I say it. If you like the series and you want it to stay around, you know what you have to do. And I try to do it so that it's as easy as possible for everyone. And then it's up to you guys. If you want the channel to stick around, then I don't think it's too much to ask that people do their bit. Because as I say, this is free content. What you're watching right now is free content. Some people put their content behind paywalls and they get a lot of criticism for that. Some of it justified, some of it not. There's another guy I watch on YouTube. I won't say his name, but he started selling DVDs of some of the videos that he'd made, which was always the plan for him, was to produce it as a series and release it on DVD. And because DVD sales at the start were quite slow, he put some of the videos up on YouTube for free as like previews. But once the DVD started selling and the channel started paying for itself, he put some of the content behind paywalls. And the internet lost its mind. But I think he was perfectly justified in doing that. It's his content. If he wants to charge people for it, that's his prerogative. At the end of the day, he's running a business. I'm running a business. We've got to make it work. We've got to make it profitable. Otherwise, business don't exist no more. Simple as that. So yeah, I'll always say it. Every time, I'll bang the drum. If you want the series to stay, then I need people now more than ever to do their bit. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. It's 3 things. It takes 30 seconds. Right, so this station is getting rebuilt, as you can see. I don't need to do a design contest for this, really. At least I hope I don't. This design should suffice. In the future, I am contemplating the idea. Some of these platforms are way too long, by the way. I will shorten them. I am contemplating the idea of having other lines on this. Where's this sentence going, Mark? I'm contemplating the idea of having other lines coming out of this station, but we'll see about that. I've also just realised that I deliberately moved this station slightly to the west so I could build it a bit more like Fort Flonwood Parkway, and then completely forgot to rebuild it like Fort Flonwood Parkway. So we're going to have another crack at this. This time I'm going to do it properly. Actually, I'll say one more thing, and this is a criticism. This is a criticism. I always find it funny that people always used to say, bring back this series, do this, do that, whatever. Tell me what to do, basically. And a lot of the time I went with it, because at the end of the day, as a content creator, you want to make stuff that people enjoy. And the only way you can tell what people enjoy is to ask them. And people are very happy to give their opinions. But as soon as I ask people to do their bit, so like right now, as soon as I say to people, can you hit the like button? Can you subscribe? Can you share the channel? Deathly silence. Deathly silence. No one says a word. No one says yes. No one says no. No one says anything. It just goes absolutely silent. I always find that funny. It's that thing of people always wanted their voice to be heard. When I used to do Cities in Motion and things like that, and then as soon as I created a suggestions page, no one used it. It's just, I find it funny. Why waste everyone's time bleating on about wanting this, that and the other, if as soon as the person then says, okay, what do you want, you then go quiet and don't say anything? Why? I'll let that one stew. It's a good test. It's a really good test. And I did it with Cities in Motion. The first time I stopped doing Cities in Motion was for that exact reason. Because I went away for a while. I think I had like technical issues and some other stuff going on. So the series stopped for a while. And people kept saying, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? And I kept saying, you know, soon, soon. Don't worry, it is coming back. And then I did a big announcement, Cities in Motion returning to the channel. Uploaded the video. Like 3 people watched it. I was like, right, that's it. It's gone. Bin it. And I think I've proved as well over the last couple of years that if it's going nowhere, I'd rather kill it while I still can. And no series is safe. Even the ones that have been on the channel for years aren't safe. They can be cancelled at any second if the viewing figures drop below a certain amount. And the only thing actually that's kept this series going is the fact that every week the viewing figures are actually quite good. If it wasn't for that, like the live streams, I would have killed a few weeks ago, because I had that one particular stream where it was just me. No one else came in. It was just me on my own for 2 hours. And boy, was that a boring stream. That was a really boring stream. And that week, I did actually think, okay, is this the week it ends? I'll give it one more week. And then that next week, it seemed to become popular again. But genuinely, that's how close it's come. That is how close it's come. And I do still get people saying things like, oh, I really want this series to stay. But if no one's doing their bit, then it's not going to stay. It's not going to stay. As I say, I've proved in the past that that is a genuine statement. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Which way do I want this junction to go? Probably... That one go like that. And that one go like that. Unfortunately, I missed the stream next week because I'm working late. I should clarify. If one person has to miss a stream because of, you know, a genuine reason, that's not my issue. Like, that's not my issue. My issue is the fact that people keep going on about, you know, the series needs to stay, the series needs to do this, the series needs to do that. Very vocally, very loud. But then, as soon as I get to the point of thinking this series might have run its course now, no one says a word to actually keep it. Hey Kurt, welcome, welcome. Yeah, that was my point. I'm not like picking on individual people and saying you're the reason why this series didn't stick around. That's not very fair. I literally mean it as, too often people try to run my channel until I ask them to, and then they go quiet. It's like that Homer Simpson meme where he slowly backs into the hedge. That's exactly what happens. Like right now, I started talking about, oh, this series might not stick around for long, and for 20 minutes no one said a word. I just find that funny. Because at the end of the day, when you're a content creator, it's a very lonely experience, and you read that a lot. People say the same thing over and over again. It's a very lonely experience because it is just you pretty much sat in isolation recording videos. And unless you run your channel with other people, which some do, and I think that works very well, the only time you get to interact with other people is when you're streaming. And if no one comes in and interacts with you while you're streaming, it just sucks. It really sucks. It kind of feels like being taken advantage of as well. Like, people take money from you all the time, but then when you ask for it back, they disappear. It kind of feels like that. So it's not money in this case, it's time and energy and effort and things like that. So it's like I used to say, these videos take a long time to produce. The old M4J videos before we started doing these streams used to take, on average, about 12 hours, 12 to 16 hours to produce, and that included planning and things like that. And when you put that amount of time into something, you kind of want it to return the favour kind of thing. So when you put 12 hours into a video, you want people watching it to be willing to put 30 seconds into hitting the like button, and people weren't doing that. And I really don't think it's too much to ask to say at the start of a stream, let's have a chatty stream this week, and then for people to chat. But I have to do it every week, because some weeks I ask for people to chat and no one does. Some weeks I do Twitch streams and like 16 people watch and no one says hi. And it's just, as I say, it's demoralizing, it's depressing. Have you ever played Rollercoaster Tycoon 1-2 Open Classic? If so, what did you like and dislike about it? Well, that's a good way to change the subject. Yeah. Played 1 when it first came out. Played 2 when it first came out. Pretty much bought 3 on release day and played the hell out of it. And I, for one, still count Planet Coaster as Rollercoaster Tycoon 4. Because it feels more like a Rollercoaster Tycoon game than anything that Atari have brought out since Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. I love those games. I absolutely love those games. If you watch the XVI podcasts, we talk about our favourite games from our childhood. And Transport Tycoon, obviously, is one that I talk about. But Rollercoaster Tycoon, Ben even makes a joke in that about... It's the first time he's ever heard me light up in a conversation, is when I started talking about Rollercoaster Tycoon. And it's true. I loved that game so much when I was a kid. I used to play the absolute hell out of it. Hours and hours and hours on end I spent playing that game. And to an extent, not so much because Planet Coaster scratches the same itch, but to an extent I do miss playing Rollercoaster Tycoon. And I actually do own Rollercoaster Tycoons 1, 2 and 3 on Steam. I've just never installed them. Maybe there's a series there. Maybe there's a series there. Who knows? We will change the subject now, but the last thing I will say is also commenting in the chat about you attend every stream. That's also not the problem, because I also said at the start of this conversation, the problem is it's the same 2 people every week. No one new. And my channel's been sat on 980 something subscribers for the last year and a half. Only recently has it gone up to the highest, which was 987, which it is on now, but it's fluctuated a lot over the last few days. Sometimes it goes up to 987, sometimes it goes back down to 983. It fluctuates a lot, and we need to get it rising again. So I'm working on new stuff, and I realised the last week there's been nothing on the channel, and I'm working on that. As I said, there is content that I've been sat on, but I've been waiting to get my desk in order, so that, you know, tidy mind, what was it, tidy desk, tidy mind, or something like that. Although some people say empty desk, empty mind as well, so you got to be careful. But that was the plan, was to get my desk sorted out, and then I can start producing content again. And as of today, my desk is officially sorted out, so content will be produced again from probably tomorrow. But it won't go up until next week. So next week will be the first in the cycle. And that's done intentionally. But yeah, it's not me asking, can you put your hand up if you've watched a stream over the last few weeks? And it's also not me saying, oh, by the way, could you just let me know if you're not going to be able to watch a stream next week? It's more the fact that we need to get more people watching the streams every week. We need to get more people chatting. We need to get more people liking and subscribing and things like that. Because YouTube also like channels that have good interaction levels, even if they have low subscriber counts. So if I can get up to 1,000 subscribers, that's brilliant. If I can get up to 1,000 subscribers and also have a good interactive ratio, then that's even better. And that's what I'm aiming for, mainly. And it's nice to be able to talk to people as well. I like nothing more than to actually explain my thinking when I'm working on these projects. Let's put these shelters in. I saw SimCity mentioned just then. Yeah, SimCity wasn't killed by the city skyline. SimCity was killed by itself. SimCity 2013 was a terrible game, and they shut down the studio that made it. That's how bad it was. Skylines, I think Colossal Order just looked at SimCity and thought, now's our chance. Because they already had a good track record with the Cities in Motion series, and from what I gather, they'd always wanted to make a city builder. So SimCity failing was their route in. And they did a bloody good job of it, I'd say. Skylines, I don't like the fact that it crashes a lot. But actually, I did a stream which was put on the channel a few weeks ago, and it worked fine. It was a really fun game to play again. I've got back into it. Yeah, they did the online only thing, which is an argument in amongst itself. Like Bethesda this week at QuakeCon announced that the original Doom games were going to be available to download. So loads of people went and downloaded the game, and then they got pissed off because they had to sign into Bethesda.net. But people seem to think that means they have to be online in order to play the game, and I don't actually think that's what Bethesda were trying to do. But that's how it's come across, which is a bad thing, bad publicity. Bethesda have a lot of ones like that, where if you actually look at it, it can go one of two ways, and unfortunately for them, it went the wrong way. Fallout 76 is another good example of that. If people actually played the game rather than complain about it, they would have found that it's not actually as bad as other people made it out to be. Maxis got shut down before Skylines released. It was always going to happen. The fact that Skylines turned into a good game had no impact on SimCity. It was already dead. They went for what they thought was popular, and they missed the mark completely. And that's why I think games that do Battle Royale modes now, games that are only Battle Royale, are going to die at some point in the next few years, because Battle Royales are going to lose their popularity. Games that include a Battle Royale feature will live a lot longer, because there are other things that you can do in the game. Like GTA has a Battle Royale mode, and it's actually kind of fun. And, you know, Fallout has a Battle Royale mode, but it adds to the story, which I thought was really clever. That's one of Bethesda's hits, in my opinion. Nuclear Winter. I think they did a good job with that. SimCity 4 is the best SimCity game ever, in my opinion. SimCity 2013, the maps were too small. Yeah, one tile in Skylines is the same size as the entire city in SimCity. That was the difference right there. Is they went way too small on the scale. Way too small. Right, this is done. This rebuild is done. So we can now run trains between Wantford and Grundhead Apollonia via Nuthill City Centre. And I think this line here, this new line, is also going to go down to Wantford. We should probably plan that out. So where's Wantford? Wantford is down there. So this will be like a diversion route as well as being an active passenger service. They ignored the success of SimCity 4, such as farming and other areas which people liked. Yeah, they ignored a lot of things. They tried to do, because SimCity 4 was quite different to its predecessor as well, so they tried to continue that trend of each game being different from the last one. The problem is this one was too different, and they did ignore what people liked about the previous game. I didn't like SimCity 4 because a lot of the traffic, all the SimCity games actually had this, all of the traffic, the car traffic, it wasn't real traffic, it was symbolic. I didn't like that. I wanted to actually see people driving around my city, which is something that Skylines has done really well. There's other things as well along those lines. SimCity was always a bit too abstract for me. It was a bit too... it's not symbolic. What's the word I'm looking for? Representative. A bit too representative in that they were trying to build a game that was large in scale but small in detail. Whereas Skylines went the other way. They built a game that, well, it was still large in scale, but they also built a game that was large in detail. And it, like, every person in that city has a house, they have a vehicle, they have a workplace, and they commute. And if you download the real-time mods and things like that, which is something else that SimCity didn't really have, was mods. Like Skyline still has its DLC, but they also have a very good modding community. And that's again where it becomes a hit rather than a miss, is you have things like the real-time mod, which means you can watch people travel around your city in real time, which is something you could never have in SimCity. And that's the big difference. Civilization has a good tradition of changing something people find key to the game, and then proving people wrong with the changes they made. Yeah, that's how you do it well. I've never liked the Civilization games for the same reason I never liked SimCity that much, because it's too representative. Like Civ, it's all the hexagons, and like a city fits in the size of a 5-pence piece. And I like to zoom in like this. I like to zoom in and actually watch this. I like to see all the individual trains going in and out, seeing where they're going. I like to click on this, go departures, and see all of this. And even on Skylines, you don't really get that, but you can still see where vehicles are going, and you can see where people are commuting to. Cities in Motion does the same thing. One of the things I used to love doing was recording videos where you just watch people going around and seeing where they go. And it's good market research, because if a lot of people are going from the southeast to the northwest, then you've got to build a line between those two places. That's what I like about Transport Fever and City Skylines. They listened to what people wanted and included it. Yeah, City Skylines is so good, I would say there's no need for Skylines 2. No. Again, not true, because the engine will be improved. It's like Planet Coaster. I don't think there's a need for a Planet Coaster 2, but rumour is that that's going to be one of their next games after Planet Zoo releases. And it is true, like the Cobra engine is good, but the next version of the Cobra engine will be even better. So there's always room for a sequel. Always room for a sequel. Some people assume it's just a cash grab, but a lot of the time it's because there's engine limitations to the previous game that you can't just improve. You have to make a new game from scratch. I mean, Rockstar. Every single update to GTA since release in 2013 has been free. Every single update. No paid DLC. People still find something to complain about. They don't like shark cards. They don't like the fact it took 6 years to get the casino into the game. They don't like the fact that the graphics haven't been improved in the last 5 years. How they expect the game to improve graphically now is beyond me, because the game exists. You can't change how it looks. I think one of the reasons for that is a lot of games that are in early access, at some point during the development cycle, they might change engine. So I'm trying to think of a good example of that off the top of my head. I think Space Engineers went through something similar, where they changed engine partway through development. But that was, they would have scrapped the old game or copied the code over onto the new engine. They wouldn't have just changed, like, it's not a switch. You can't just change the engine. But because they did it and they published it and they didn't say how they did it, people assume that you can just change the engine, and that's just not true. It's a misconception. I suppose the traffic UI could be improved and multiplayer could be included. What do people expect for free? Well, that's the argument, isn't it? What do people expect for free? Because because the DLC is free for GTA, and it's great DLC. The casino, for example, is something that people have wanted for a long time, and for a long time people thought it was never going to happen. So I'm just deciding which way around that should go. There we go. Mainly because of gambling laws, and even now, this is laughable as well. So the casino now exists. It's a great add-on. The missions are fun. The casino itself, very nicely designed, very nicely built. The fact they actually put it in the place where people wanted it as well. It's fan service. I don't think the Diamond Casino was ever planned to be added into the game. I don't think it ever was. But because enough people complained about it, they've gone to the drawing board and they've come up with this really awesome add-on to the story, and it fits. I had a bit of a dumb moment the other day, because I recognised the name Cheng from the casino update. I'd never really put two and two together and realised that's the same guy that you fight against as Trevor in the story. Never crossed my mind, but the way they've worked that in, and Brucey from GTA 4 coming back, I hate him, but it's nice to see characters coming back still. Avery Duggan, I'm sure I've heard that name before. Whether he's in any way related to Avery Carrington from GTA Vice City, I don't know. But if he is, then that'd be cool. That'd be a nice little throwback as well. And it's free. No one had to pay a penny for it. But people still complain because of shark cards and stuff like that. And actually, I might link this in the chat. There was a guy on the Planet Coaster Reddit last week who asked when the water park update would be released. And if he'd have just said that and someone answered saying there isn't going to be one, and they've already said there isn't going to be one, then that would have been fine. But he put in his original post, I'm never downloading this game again until they put water parks in it. And this it's just ignorance, because Frontier have been very honest the whole way through, and they have said there's never going to be a water park DLC for Planet Coaster because the engine can't support it. They've always said that. Every time, every stream, someone asks about it, they say that. They've been very transparent about it. People still ask. That's the first dumb thing. People still ask. Why? Just accept the fact that it's not going to exist. But this guy says, he's never going to play the game again until they put the water park DLC in. So I replied quite sarcastically saying, I guess you're not going to play it again then. To start with, he was sort of okay about it, and then he went off on one. He started saying, they're just money grabbers, they just do this for the money and things like that. And I had to tell him how a business works. Like, yeah, of course they're in it for the money. That's what a business is. Like, we at XVI, we want to make games that tell stories that we like. And the games we're working on are very good stories. But at the same time, we're a business. We have to make money somehow. And this guy started talking about Call of Duty and saying things like, so he was moaning about the cost of DLC. Let me just zoom across the map so we're not just looking at the same thing over and over again. He was talking about the cost of DLC and said, it's $20 for 3 or 4 rides. It should be 1 ride per dollar or something really stupid. I can't remember the exact thing. It was so dumb I completely forgot it. And again, I said to him, but that you won't make money like that. And again, Frontier have been quite honest, and they say they barely break even on some of the DLC. They do it because they like the idea of it, but eventually they'll stop doing it because they won't make any more money from it. And I accept that. I think, okay, fair enough. It's a bit of a shame that they're not going to finish the project that they wanted to do, but they got to make money. But this guy used Call of Duty and said, when you buy an update on Call of Duty, you buy DLC, you get 5 or 6 maps and all this kind of thing. And I just replied saying the fact that you're using Call of Duty as an example of how to do things right is laughable. Because COD, especially last year, Black Ops 4, no new maps. They were all rehashes of old maps from other games. Every single one of them. How is that good value for money? You spend 60 quid on something that you've already spent 60 quid on. Does that make much sense? Doesn't to me. Then I said to him, Call of Duty have loot boxes now. That's where they make their money from. Rockstar have shark cards. Red Dead have their equivalent. So they have 2 lots of revenue streams coming in. Fortnite have V-Bucks. These companies make money. Even if they have free DLC and free content and things like that, they're making their money somewhere else. That's how they can afford to do it. And I don't necessarily agree with all of it. I don't like the idea of loot boxes, for example. I think it's not a good way to make money for your business. I don't like the fact that Siege has it as well. They have alpha packs. But at the end of the day, it's the developer's choice. If that's what they want to do, if that's how they want to make their money, you either have to accept it or you don't. But to go around accusing other companies of being money grabbing when you're endorsing another company that does exactly the same thing, it's just so dumb. Yeah, that was the other point I was going to make with GTA, is too many people asked for it, they've now implemented it, and as it turns out, gambling laws are preventing it being accessible in certain countries. And who are they blaming? They're blaming Rockstar. So you ask a company to put a casino into a game, which they do, they oblige, they follow the fans' orders, and then the same fans then criticize the game for putting a casino into it because they can't play casino games in their country. How is that Rockstar's fault? The truth of that is, be careful what you wish for. because you might get what you want, but not in the way you wanted it. And then that's exactly what's happening now, is people didn't get the exact update that they wanted, so now they're going on the warpath again. I bet you that someone complains that Transport Fever 2 does not have multiplayer, even though they explained they could not do it. Yeah, every game has paid DLC these days. Every game does. Like Rainbow Six, every few months they have an update with new operators, and you have to. It's a free update. You get the map for free, things like that. But if you want to speed up and get the operators, you either have to buy the season pass, which costs you money, or you have to buy alpha packs in order to unlock skins for those characters, which costs you money. As I said, Rockstar has the shark cards for GTA and whatever the Red Dead equivalent is. Loot boxes, you know, Battlefield has loot boxes, Call of Duty has loot boxes, Battlefront has loot boxes. What else? I'm sure there's others. Fortnite, you buy skins, you buy V-Bucks that you can then buy skins with. Every company makes money, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. I don't agree with a lot of it, but I accept it. What do you think of Fortnite's World Championships? The fact that a 16-year-old is now a multi-millionaire is kind of cool. I don't want to endorse it, because at the same time I want people to become doctors and engineers and things like that, but it's kind of sticking two fingers up at those people that used to laugh at us and say, "Ha, you're just a nerd because you sit and play computer games all day." And the answer now is, yeah, but I'm a nerd who's $2.5 million richer than you are. So I think it's good. I think it's good, actually. I think it's good. Esports is a thing. As much as people would dispute it, esports is a thing. It's as much of a thing as darts. You know, if darts is a sport, then esports is a sport, as far as I'm concerned. And it is good skills, you know. I won't use real life examples because I think that's a bit of an insult, but it is real skills. What you can do with a controller in Fortnite, you could do with a drone, for example. And particularly in modern warfare, being able to fly a drone is just as important as being able to fire a gun these days. Now you're watching me dither around, because really we should be ending the stream now, so I will start wrapping things up in a second. It's been a weird stream tonight. It's been a lot of it's been good conversation. Some good topics come up, but I feel like I've ranted a little bit as well. Some games even outright limit how much progress you can make per day. Yeah, mobile games do that, and that's how they make their money. And again, I don't agree with it. I don't really play many mobile games that do that. Like the Harry Potter game that everyone was excited for, and it turned out to be one of these games where to cast a certain number of spells you have to pay a certain amount. What else? Battlefront was the worst one for me. Battlefront 2. The fact that they took some of the main characters that people wanted to unlock and put them behind paywalls. That's probably one of the biggest slaps in the face to the fan service that there's ever been. But if that's how they want to make their money, you either agree with it and you buy the game, or you don't agree with it and you don't buy the game. But sitting around complaining about it doesn't really solve anything. Yeah, Kurt agrees too. It's good being part of XVI. It's one of the things I love about being part of XVI is we all have very similar opinions about this sort of thing. So we kind of have a code of conduct about things that we won't put in our games. And you know, fingers crossed we stick to it to the most part. But a lot of it is for ethical and moral reasons. So I mean, you know, there's the typical do's and don'ts. We're not going to go into that. But things like loot boxes, paid content, stuff like that. We've talked in the past about maybe having episodic content in the future, but even then it'll be once you've bought the base game, updates will be a very small token amount. So if you buy a game for like $5.99 and then we release extra content for it, we won't make you pay $5.99 again, for example. And it's encouraging to know that, I mean, it's not just us, other companies do it too. And you know, Rockstar, the fact that a AAA studio, yes, they do have shark cards, and I don't necessarily like the fact that someone who's a level 6, for example, the other day we were playing on PC, and someone in I think he's like level 6 or level 16 or something like that. I had a 6 in it. He was flying around in an oppressor, and then another guy comes in a deluxo, and they're not like, if they played the game naturally, they would not be in those cars and they would not be on that bike. But the fact that they bought shark cards means they can then afford to pay for a deluxo. I don't agree with that. I think it ruins the game for those who do want to play it fairly. And I actually think Rockstar would benefit if they had separate servers for that sort of thing. How you would decide who's paid what, though, I don't know. Because, I mean, even some of us have bought shark cards so that we can buy apartments and things like that. But it is a bit of a game killer for me. But all their DLC's free, which I like. I agree with that. I think that's a really good thing that they've done. So, do I like them or do I not like them? I don't know. I think my main issue really is not necessarily with the companies, but those who either defend or turn against those companies. Because if your argument is flawed, then you have no argument. Anyway, we should end the stream now. So, to get back onto OpenTTD very quickly, we have done pretty much everything that I set out to do. I did do a thing at the bottom to plan out services that cross through Nuthill City Centre. I'll tick it off as now. Tick it off as done for now, but I think we'll have to come back to it. I'll probably come back to it off camera and just plan out some token services that will either then get removed or extended when the network grows. An extreme example by EA is a game where you have to wait several days or pay several dollars to make one small unit of progress. The game could not legally be called free to play. Yeah, that's another argument for another time. No, I don't want to get into that. I think I've ranted too much tonight, and it's not good for anybody. So yeah, if you have ideas for next week's stream, or even future streams, doesn't have to be next week's, feel free to leave them in the comment section below this video, or put it in the chat now very quickly, because we've still got a couple more minutes. But beyond that, yeah, now's the time to really push the channel and get the message out there. So it doesn't have to be a Reddit post. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be a Reddit post. I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I think that's awesome. But it's things like, you know, Facebook, you know, talking to your friends, just mention, oh, I watched this really cool video, you should check it out, or something along those lines. If you're a rail enthusiast and you attend meetings for, you know, with other rail enthusiasts, you can mention it. Friends, family, people like that, work colleagues, whoever it might be. Me and my brother, for example, we always share different channels with each other. So I've got into watching Luke the Notable play Fortnite now because my brother watches him. And likewise, my brother now likes Rooster Teeth because I got him into it. So it's amazing if you... Hey, there he is. Right on cue as well. And that's a lot of the content that I've found, I've shared with other people. Sometimes with success, sometimes not so much. But that's how these channels grow. It's always word of mouth. It's always word of mouth. Even in 2019, where I can send an email to Australia and it arrives there pretty much as I hit the send button. Even now, in this day of technology, word of mouth is still the best way to get a message out. So if you like the channel and you like the series and you want it to continue, then I am asking you very, very nicely to help make the channel grow. So we hit 300,000 views last week in total, which I think I've got about 3,000 videos on the channel, so that's about 100 views a video, which is not very good when you work it out like that. It's been 6 years and we're still not on 1,000 subs. If we hit 1,000 subs, circumstances will change and I'll be a lot more upbeat and positive, if we can hold on to 1,000 subs as well, of course. But between now and then, I need you guys to help me out. I need you guys to help me out. And I'll do my bit. I'll keep producing content. I'll share stuff on social media as well whenever I can. But I've got a lot of new series planned, and I want them to be successful. And the only way they can be successful is to get people to watch them. So it's very much appreciated. Everyone who has helped out so far, it's very much appreciated. It's not forgotten. Believe me, it's not forgotten. I know exactly who's helped me and when. And it's a bit like, you know, James asked what was the best donation I ever got. And that Minecraft server, it wasn't, you know, it didn't help pay a bill, it didn't help buy new equipment or anything like that. But for 18 months, me and my friends at the time built a really good community on that Minecraft server. It was a lot of fun. Even though the videos got hardly any likes on YouTube, that was my best streaming experience, was during that time. And it's been all downhill since then. That's not strictly true. Being in big groups is where I thrive, and being part of a community, especially one that I've helped create as well, is a very good feeling. And that's what the M4J channel was originally set up for. It was to find like-minded people around the world with similar interests and share ideas. And it doesn't necessarily have to be my ideas, it's everyone's ideas, which is why I have things like the suggestions page, and I have the Patreon reward system. It's to get everyone involved, because I know what it's like to have interests that no one else in your social circle is interested in. I know what it's like, it's horrible. So that's what this channel's for. It's like a safe haven, let's say. But yeah, please do share the videos and share the channel if you enjoy the content. It really is appreciated. And also, hopefully the stream went well tonight on the new PC. It's very, very hot in my room right now because I've got so many electronic devices on. So I'm probably going to have to get the aircon plugged back in a second, but I'll do that again off camera. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. I see 6 people have, which is awesome. Last week 8 people did, which I was really surprised about. It was like 20 views and 8 likes, which is awesome as well. Especially, as I always say, you can watch a video as many times as you like, but you can only like it once. So that is good interaction. So keep that up. 8 is the target now, and then next week it'll be whatever this week's one was, and so on and so forth. Always beat the previous week's target. And yeah, subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. Hit that share button as well. It's big and bold, and it's right on. Is it right next to the subscribe button or underneath the subscribe button? Oh no, it's right next to the dislike button, which is right next to the like button. So there you go. When you hit the like button, just go 2 to the right and hit the share button as well. And stick it on all your social media so everyone can see that you like M4J. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And until next time, I will see you soon.